Şimdi konunun uzmanlarından birine bağlanacağız. Londra'ya gideceğiz. Hazırladı zaten onu ekibimiz, Heymo ekibi. Bütün sunum hazır. Şimdi size takdim etmek istiyorum. WPP Emerging Technologies Vice President Andy Hood, AI Empowered Creativity başlıklı konuşması. Sanki bir sahnedeymişiz gibi onu anons etmeme izin verin ve alkışlarınızı Londra'ya gönderelim. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Andy Hood.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. Yes, we are going to be talking about some very radical things. Radical, but not sudden. There's this idea that the whole discussion about people and creativity began with the big boom in generative AI last year, but AI has been a part of the artistic world for quite some time. This is years and years ago. Helena Sarin using generative adversarial networks to create art. A artistic group called Obvious created the image on the right-hand side by using neural networks to blend together the styles of the two images to the left, and sold this image for $400,000. In about 2015 or 2016 or thereabouts, Sony Flow Machines neural network created and produced a song called Daddy's Car. I hate that song, but it is not about my taste. This Flow Machines resurfaced in 2020 as music production software powered by AI. Even WPP, where I am now, a few years ago, it's about 2018, I think, used neural networks to learn the paintings of Rembrandt, his styles, his composition, even the brushstrokes he used, in order to create an entirely new work of Rembrandt some 400 years after the artist's death. So this is something that's been building for a long time. It's not something that suddenly hit last year. But of course, something did happen last year that exploded the conversation in the public domain, and that was the emergence of these generative AI models. And that began with text and with image, with ChatGPT, and with Midjourney. By the end of the year, we're seeing generative AI models at play with video, with music and sound, even with fully immersive 3D virtual worlds. And of course, that conversation exploded on the world stage, partly because usually with new technologies, there is a group of early adopters, a small group who start to play with the tools and the technologies, and then it expands gradually out from there over a period of time. In this case, though, ChatGPT and Midjourney, they were free at the onset. They were ridiculously easy to use, which is kind of the signature of generative AI. And they were also easy to find, which basically means that the whole world were the early adopters. And that conversation hit the mainstream really fast and exploded really quickly. Part of the conversation that spiraled from that is still the first topic of conversation and the first question I get asked whenever I present about generative AI to any audience. And that is, what is the role of people, of creators, of artists and designers in a world where generative AI produces this work? There is still an idea that do we still need the people, given that the technology produces these assets? Clearly, the answer to that, when you actually think about it and get into it, is yes, we absolutely require those people. And there are several big reasons why that is. For one thing, the generative AIs do a really good job of producing assets. But how do we know what to produce? We need experienced people who know what to aim for on the way in, who have the idea, who know what it is that we want to be produced. And we need those people to have the expertise to understand what good looks like. When have we hit the goal that we set ourselves? When have we achieved what we wanted to achieve? Those are people with experience and expertise in a discipline who understand that discipline. And there are other examples of how this works. If we look at this is an image produced with Midjourney of this young supermodel wearing this white polo neck jumper in this Arctic setting. On the right-hand side, we can see the prompt that's been used to generate this image. Now, up to about halfway down, I could have done this. As a non-artist, I could have done this, because all we're really doing in the first half of this prompt is describing the image we want. And most people can do that. From about halfway down, there is a lot of discipline, expertise, and knowledge at play. Whoever put this together has specified that they want it to be shot with a Hasselblad medium format camera. They've specified a particular Carl Zeiss lens that they want on their Hasselblad camera, and they've specified a Ricoh filter to be on the lens on the camera. Clearly, this is the work of a photographer, because I and most regular pundits would not actually even think of the effect that they want on the image and what they need to use in order to bring that effect about, and when that effect has been achieved. So this is a tool for the photographer. It is not a replacement for the photographer. What we're looking at here are new skill sets and tools for creative people to take on board. And that has always been the case. When Photoshop appeared all those years ago, whether that's, I can't remember, it's 25 years, even longer than that. Companies did not get rid of their designers and hire a bunch of Photoshop operators. Random people do not suddenly become the next incarnation of Picasso or Brian Eno because Stable Diffusion and ChatGPT have become available to them. Those discipline, skills, and knowledge and expertise are vital. These tools supercharge creative people and enable them to do new things. The second part of that equation is what we use generative AI for. And that tends to break down, I think, into these two philosophical buckets. A lot of the conversation about generative AI is about how we can improve the ways in which we do the things that we've always done. How do we make the production of assets and ads and images and sounds and things more efficient, more productive, take less time, and all of these things than we did before? How does the existing set of work impacted by these new technologies, and what can we drive and how can we progress? The other side of it, though, is far more imaginative. It needs much more of a creative leap and an imaginative leap. And it is, how do we bring new things into the world? How do we do things that were not available before and make new things possible? And I'll take you back in time for an analogy here to these two devices. The first generation iPad, I feel old even trying to think about when this came out, so I won't. And the first generation Oculus Rift virtual reality headset that came out around 2013, 2012, somewhere around there. Now, you may remember, those of you who remember the first iPad coming out, that the first iPad apps that started to emerge were just iPhone apps at double the size, because that's all we knew. That's all we had. The idea was, how does the content we already have work on this new device? How does this device fit into the world as it currently exists? With the Oculus Rift Generation 1, I remember around 2013, there being a prototype built in virtual reality of a supermarket, with the idea that this was the supermarket of the future. This was the shopping experience of the future. And what it was pretty accurately rendered for 2013, 3D replica of an existing supermarket with aisles and shelves and products on shelves, even a shopping trolley that you pushed through. And again, it was a port. It was, how does the real world as it is today port to this new device? And this is how we think about these things. Very quickly, with the iPad, we started to see actually that the iPad has its own context of use. It has different use cases. It provokes different behaviors. It is different to an iPhone. And people started to design for it. And suddenly you have iPhone apps and iPad apps, which are fundamentally different things. With the Oculus Rift, when you look at VR, suddenly you look at the supermarket and go, actually in VR, the laws of physics don't apply anymore. Gravity doesn't have to be here. I can have products spontaneously appear out of thin air. Only the things I like have to be here. And suddenly we're creating new possibilities that, rather than think about the world as it is and how the technologies fit in it, we're expanding the world and making it bigger. And this is the creative leap which we can have with generative AI. We can talk about efficiencies, time saving, money saving, and driving those kind of efficiencies across a production pipeline. That's a totally valid, understandable, rational conversation to have. But it's not the only conversation. The other one is, how do we bring new things into the world? How do we expand our horizons and push boundaries with these technologies? Now, I'm going to show a few examples here. And given the grandiose nature of what I've just said, these might seem quite small. But in pushing boundaries, you can push a boundary a mile, or you can push it by an inch. Both of those things are incredibly valuable. Pushing a boundary by an inch enough times, and it moves a long way. These are all WPP pieces of work. Excuse me for that. It's the work that I know best because that's where I work. So in this case, this is a campaign for Nestle featuring this very famous painting by Vermeer called The Milkmaid. The canvas here is expanded on all sides and filled in a way which is completely authentic to the original work, which basically results in a completely new work of art with the Vermeer painting at its core. It's like the world behind the painting, or an expansion of the world. This is something that we didn't see before, that we couldn't have seen before. It has an impact. It's a really interesting thing to do. And it's a technique that only the generative AI provides us with. This one's actually quite old. This goes back a couple of years and you may have seen it. But you probably won't have seen it in the context that I want to talk about it here. This is Shah Rukh Khan, massive Bollywood star, filming an ad for Cadbury's in India. And then, having filmed this ad, his image was deepfaked and his voice cloned, all with his consent, I might add. And that was done so that the owners of tiny street-level stores in Mumbai suddenly had access to Shah Rukh Khan to create little video ads for their stores and whatever they sell. Now, this is a huge democratizing fact of AI. This is platforms and people that these store owners would never have had access to before. And the world suddenly got bigger for those people because of this. This is a piece of work by AKQA for Nike, featuring Serena Williams. And in the first instance, Serena Williams as a 17-year-old, where using all of them huge amounts of data about Serena Williams, a model can be built of Serena Williams at 17. Not just her strength and athleticism and movement, but her tennis brain, her intelligence, her strategy, shot selections, all of these things to create this model of Serena Williams. The same done as Serena Williams as a 35-year-old at the back end of her career. And using AI, visualizing those two models so they can play a game of tennis against each other. We've done this through the years with comparing athletes from different eras, who would win, Pele or Messi, all of these things. But actually with AI allows us to actually visualize these things, even with two instances of the same athlete. These are remarkable things that require that creative leap to push boundaries, try new things and explore. Lastly, voice cloning again. Voice cloning is a subject that makes most people feel quite uneasy, and rightly so. This is actually an incredibly positive and meaningful implementation of voice cloning from Dell. This is a campaign using voice cloning to help people with motor neuron disease. And motor neuron disease is an awful thing that gradually robs people of their faculties, beginning with their power of speech. And in producing a book that, when read out loud, allows all the data to be recorded that's required to accurately clone that person's voice. When that person, that sufferer of motor neuron disease, finally loses their power of speech and relies upon technology to speak for them, it is their voice that is heard. And that is incredibly profound and powerful. Sufferers of motor neuron disease are taking this up in numbers, and why wouldn't they? Along with the institutions and bodies that support them. All of these things are are pushing boundaries, whether by miles or by inches, but to producing new things and thinking about how the technology expands the horizons that we have rather than fits within it. So given all of that, WPP is a big organization, 150,000 or so people, I think, something like that. Tens of thousands of those are creative people. How are we empowering our creative communities with these technologies to do the very best work, to push boundaries, and to do so, in particular, safely and responsibly, because there are legal and ethical challenges. And this is something that we have an excellent team led by Vicky Brown, our most senior legal counsel, who does an excellent job of rationalizing this for us and not preventing, but actually enabling us to do these things safely and responsibly. And those challenges include things such as fake content. We know there's going to be an avalanche of that this year. This year, there are more elections than ever before. And we saw what's happened before. There's an avalanche of fake content. We need to be ready. Copyright. We know that there is the possibility that images can be produced that are unduly influenced by a specific person's singular piece of work. Bias. We know how massively biased the internet is. Therefore, things trained on the internet are likely to exhibit bias. How do we look at work through a lens of potential bias in order to make sure that we do not fall afoul of these things? And then stories of data protection, where things that we input can end up being somebody else's output. Examples of this abide. I'm not going to go into detail about how we deal with these things, but our awareness and our ability to deal with these things as WPP helps our entire network to do so. We do that by building and have built an enterprise level platform, which is one of the tools within that is this. It's much bigger than this. This is Creative Studio, and it's built by WPP, and it integrates lots of different generative AI models. I'm not going to talk you through this video because there's a lot going on, but this is a lot of different generative AI models, DALL-E, Firefly, and all these different models integrated into this platform. And then those can be used against use cases specific to our industry and the tasks that our creatives have. So this means that people who are not deep into the generation of prompts, how the models work, etc. Behind the scenes, they can express what they want, what they're looking for, what they need. That can be translated into prompts, images produced, text produced, tested against audiences for many different disciplines in our industry, across our network, in all of our agencies, empowering those people to do these things. Now, the generic nature of models trained on data can also be a factor in the output that we receive. We want the models to bring the best results for the clients we have. So, in fact, we train a lot of these models with very specific client knowledge bases, data, audience data, images, assets, logos, etc. We call those brains. That means that all of this work can be targeted specifically at the people we need to do our work for. Now, another challenge that I didn't mention is the inability of some of these tools to actually accurately render things that exist already, such as logos. We see here a Nike Air logo missing an eye, Mercedes logo, which is slightly off kilter, and how we can overcome this. And we actually overcome this by not using generative AI. Last year, WPP announced a joint venture with NVIDIA. NVIDIA don't do many joint ventures, but they did this one, and they're the perfect partner to do it because NVIDIA don't just have expertise in AI. They also have expertise in rendering 3D models, virtual production, virtual worlds such as Omniverse. And there we can actually see that by combining those technologies, we have a car here and we have bottles here. These are not produced by generative AI. They are 3D models produced from CAD data, from product scanning. They will always be accurate. But the environment that those are in is produced by generative AI. And this is an exclusive partnership between WPP and NVIDIA that enables us to produce these things at scale with the products, with the logos always being accurate and available to the people that we have in the networks that do this work. So all of this that you've seen put together shows the just very, very rapidly, not just the efficiencies that we can drive, but also the imaginative new areas that we can go into, the way that we can expand boundaries and horizons, and also make all of that available to our entire creative force. Now, there are two sides to any conversation about any technology, and one of those sides is the technology. And as you can see, we've invested a lot and continue to invest a lot in the technologies and the platforms and what we're building. The other side of it is people, technology and talent. And there is a desire, basically, I think, for us to create the workforce who will power the creative work that we want to build with these technologies over the face of the future, and in so doing, change the face of those who do the work, change the face of the industry in so doing. So a little trailer here, because I will be back tomorrow. I'm afraid you'll have to put up with me again. And that in that session, I will talk about how we are producing the next wave of generational talent to make use of these technologies and many other technologies with the WPP Creative Technology Apprenticeship. But for now, thank you very much.
Andy Hood'a çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Thank you very much for this inspirational speech. That was really eye-opening, and I love the one phrase, the skill sets and the tools for creative people. So it's new tools, new skill sets for creative people. En çok hoşuma giden yaklaşım zaten buydu. Günü de özetliyor. Aslında yapay zeka yeni beceriler seti, yani bize veriyor her şeyi. Human factor dediğimiz şey ve yeni araçlar veriyor. Yeni araçlara biz hazırlanmak durumundayız. Yarın Andy bize gençler için yaptıklarını anlatacak. Gençlere verdikleri önemi, hazırladıkları programı WPP olarak. Mega bir organizasyondan bahsediyoruz. Yüz binlerce kişiye ulaşan, binlerce kreatifin olduğu bir platform ve gençleri nasıl eğitiyorlar? Bu yeni beceriler için, yeni tool'lar için. 12 konuşmacıyla günü kapatıyoruz. Yarın da aynı şekilde kalabalık bir kadromuz var. Sizleri tekrar bekliyoruz. Yoğun bir katılım oldu bugün. Büyük bir ilgiyle izlendi. Emeği geçen herkese, Reklamcılar Derneği'ndeki arkadaşlarıma, HEYMO'ya, tüm konuşmacılarımıza, kristal markalarımıza, dünyanın her yerinden bağlanan dostlarımıza ve sizlere çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Yarın görüşmek üzere. İyi akşamlar diliyoruz.